Hi, Vyasar. Thank you so much for coming on and joining me today and taking the time to do this.
Hi, Yashi. I am super excited to be here. It is 8:26 in Austin right now, and I am awake, more awake than I should be on a Tuesday night. But
Okay. I'm really glad that we got to do this. It took some planning, but we finally got here.
we got there. That's on me. That's on me. I am notoriously slow at responding to things. I apologize.
Oh my God, no, I also took some time with follow-up, so you're all good. So I just wanted to start by getting to know you and so I guess we can start with why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Who is Vyasar both in and outside of Indian matchmaking?
Yeah, so I guess I do a lot of different things. I like to think that knowing a little bit of everything makes life a little bit richer, but getting to do a little bit of everything, well, that's the point. I try to dabble in as many things as I can. On the show, you definitely saw me painting miniatures and buying comic books, but I also do a weekly D&D night that they mention on the show, but we actually filmed it and they never got to use it, which I feel bad about because there's great clips of just dice hitting the table and it's real exciting and high drama. I mean, as exciting and high drama as dice can be, but still. I also love carpentry. I collect stamps and coins. I've been taking piano lessons for about a year and a half now. I have a lot of different things that I do. I usually don't like to describe myself with my job, not because I don't like my job. I love my job, but I think that we also get hung up on titles and positions, and we tend to discuss people's job life when sometimes people just have had a really shitty day at work and just don't want to answer your questions about their job, And some people just don't like to think of themselves by a title. But you guys saw on the show, I'm a high school college counselor at LASA, Liberal Arts and Science Academy in Austin, Texas. And I love it. It's great. It's also the school I graduated from. So it's cool to be back and giving back to the same kind of students, same kind of teachers and everything like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's kind of like full circle.
It is. I keep telling myself I'm the fun, positive guy who moves back to his hometown to give back to his community and not the loser who never left high school.
No, yes, you're definitely giving back to the teachers who gave to you. That's
exactly
that's the frame we're putting it in, because that's definitely how it is.
You're damn
right. Well, I'm glad. That's really cool that you have that many hobbies. I think a lot of people as adults lose touch with their hobbies, and it's cool that you get to do all of that and give back to your community. That's
well,
awesome.
And it's funny because I see so many adults and people my age who are just I'm so I feel really despondent. I feel like I have nothing to do all the time and everything. And oh, well, let me just open my overcoat of million hobbies that I do and find the right one for you. And it's cool and exciting sometimes. And it also it makes me really scratch my head and wonder if I'm this busy, how can people be bored?
So I guess my next question is, how did you decide to get an official matchmaker? What made you decide to go on the show?
Really, it was the show that I decided on. I was in a work meeting, I think in 2018, fall 2018. And one of my friends in LA sent me a text, in a WhatsApp message, hey, there's this thing coming out, you should definitely audition for it, I think it'd be great. And I look at it and I see Seeking South Asian Singles, and I'm okay. And I just got out of a bad breakup, I'm good. And then within an hour, 6 other people send me the same message. Just hordes of them coming after it, and just on me throughout the entire workday. So finally I'm fine, I'll do this if it will get you off my back. So I do it, I apply, nothing happens. I wait a month, I don't hear from anybody, and then a month and a half later, I get calls from producers and interviewers, and all of these things start happening at once. And the next thing you know, it's February of 2019, and I get a call from a producer saying, okay, you're in, and we're going to be at your house in a month. Be ready.
Okay, wow. That's a quick turnaround.
It was extremely quick. It was they just decided, boom, he's in, I was in. But the funny thing is there's no college acceptance letter of Netflix, right? When you get in a show, they just sort of keep you strung along until the very last second and all right, boom, you're in. And I'm really? When was this decided? No one told me I was in.
Was your family also excited about it, or was there a little bit of skepticism of, oh my God, he's gonna be on a TV show doing all
They were all really supportive and excited. They were all hoping okay, when can I come to Austin when they're gonna be there so we can be filming together and we can be there too. And they were really upset that my cousin was gonna be in San Francisco during some of the filming. He's not gonna be there. Damn it. And we're trying to get as many people there as possible. Which definitely shows, because you get both my grandparents, my mother, my aunt and uncle, one of my cousins, I think both my cousins in the first scene, and me. It's a lot of family. It's a lot of family on one camera.
No, you definitely had one of the most like family vibes, I think, in your scenes, just because everyone was contributing, people were laughing, and it was really cute. I think that was like a very wholesome aspect to your entire journey.
Wholesome. Shoot, you should see them when they're off camera. Really, like yeah, on camera, they were all very well behaved. They were taking their time to talk, polite laughter. Off camera, banter, just like yelling at each other across the house, like screaming at each other to talk, laughing in the middle of someone else's joke, just like constant, nonstop, loud shouting fun. Every Indian family gets to
Well,
enjoy.
that's actually really sweet. Yeah, I think yeah, that's nice. I think it's always nice to have family around, especially in such an important process in your life, I guess.
Yeah,
So you were a bit of a fan favorite. I would say like you kind of were a little bit. Everyone loved Vyasar. You kind of had a little breakout moment on Subtle Curry Traits where you posted that selfie and everyone was like, oh my God, Vyasar's on Subtle Curry Traits. Um, so I guess my experience is like, how do you feel about your experience with the show and like your newfound fame potentially?
it's been a take it one day at a time situation for sure. Just really been overwhelmed by the amount of love and support people have been giving, people who've been opening up about difficult stories they've had to share, people who have been saying like, man, it was just really cool to see an Indian who's older than me and not related to me doing really well. And I was like, man, that is heavy and powerful, but also thank you. It's been a take it one day at a time thing. Just getting so many like phone calls and offers and interviews, doing these things. I have never expected to be famous in my life, and now I have to remind myself, well, you're not McConaughey. Come on, this is a reality TV show on Netflix. Like, it's it's a big deal, but is it that big of a deal? You know, like I can't. I have to keep like my ego. I have to do it because if I don't, my ego's going to get. My therapist already thinks I'm insufferable. I don't need to create more friction there. But like I definitely am enjoying it. I'm definitely like it's a nice thing to have in this pandemic, just getting attention and like validation and feeling like there's a huge Indian community out there. It is really hard to feel adrift as an Indian American person in this country and separate from people. And I'm lucky that I have my family nearby, but it's incredible to see so many people, especially like that's one of the best things about SCT, right? Is just all of these brown people across the world just griping about the same things together. Ugh.
Such a community, and it's so insane because sometimes these things happen in your life and you're like, oh my God, I'm the only person this is happening to, until you realize every brown kid that's in your age range feels the exact same way.
Yeah, exactly. And I get it all the time when I work. Like I work with a lot of Indian American students and it's really wonderful, but now not having them and being like stuck across Zoom from them is really tough, and just feeling like I love being a mentor to these kids and not being able to physically be in the room with them and just see them, and it's hard. It's really, really hard.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think that's the downside of COVID is like on one hand, you have more time. Granted, it's due to a pandemic that's taking lives, but you do have more time. And on the other hand, that time means distance from people that you care about, people that like you're used to seeing every single day. So makes perfect sense. I guess a follow-up to my previous question of your newfound fame would be, did your expectations for the show and like what you expected from both like the experience in the show and after the show, did they line up? Were you skeptical at all going in?
I had no idea what to expect. No one in my family, Yashi, has ever used a matchmaker. It is completely new to us. Everyone has had like arranged marriages of a kind, but never needed a matchmaker to do it. And I was really like intrigued by this concept just there. Like I was like, well, look, I get married or not married. The point is to have fun and try something new and different. And I got to do that. And it was beyond my expectations. And I keep telling people, at the end of the day, I would have never met any of these people, whether it was Rashi, whether it was Manisha, whether it was Seema, whether it was Seema's husband, whether it was the film crew or the producers, if I hadn't done this. And because of like that, I have just met so many more people through this process. And I feel really lucky and special that I got to be a part of this. It's humbling. It really, really is, especially like when you realize how small the world is. When we saw Nadia in the first time, one of my cousins in Jersey shrieked because she knows Nadia. She used to dance with her back in the day. And it was just like, this is amazing. This Guyanese Indian woman, miles and miles away, as one of the only 7 people on this show together, the main cast members, and we have this connection. It
Yeah.
was like, it's incredible. It was like, it blew me away that's how the kind of world I live in right now.
I think that's something that has always been like surprising for me. Like the Indian community is so big yet so small.
It
Yeah.
is.
Well, I'm glad that you got to meet so many people from the show. I guess we can dive into some of the more higher level themes that the show had.
Lay it
And
on me.
yeah. So what were some flaws and were there any flaws and highlights in Indian culture that you didn't see when you were taping the show, but you may have realized after you finished taping the show? And did this, like, for you, did the show accurately reflect the reality of Indian culture and arranged marriage culture?
Yeah, that's some good questions right there. I think, you know, the parts that are shocking and horrifying to so many people, I think the primary audience there that is being shocked by it and horrified by it aren't Indian people. I think the things that are bad in the show and the things that are like difficult to deal with, Indians have been dealing, like young Indians especially, have been dealing with this for a long time. No one was surprised. It's painful, but it's true also. And I think that's the reality that the show portrays so well, is that this process is so many things to so many people. Because I bet like Indian children are watching this with their parents, and they're having two very different reactions to stuff they see on the show. There's a generation of Indians out there who thinks like, oh yeah, no, she definitely, like, that's definitely wrong with her. Whereas the young kids are like, well, I think she's pretty great. Like, and I want to make the emphasis on she, because like it's always the women, always the women. You know, it's like Indian women have been through so much shit. Like, come on, take the foot off the gas a little bit here, you know? But I think the main thing that the criticisms of the show are revolving around, you know, Smriti Mundra puts it really beautifully, that the criticisms of the show, what they're really asking for is more shows like this. We need Muslim matchmaking. We need Guyanese matchmaking. We need Indians living in Kenya matchmaking. We need gay Indian matchmaking. We need trans Indian matchmaking. We need Pakistani Indian matchmaking. We need more shows like this, because it's hard you can't expect one show to solve all the problems of arranged marriage. You can't. You can't expect one show to open a door into every single aspect of a world of Indian arranged marriages. I mean, look, you could do a whole series on Marwari weddings, you know, just Marwari weddings. You could do a whole other series on just Tamil Nadu weddings and Chennai weddings. You know, it is too big of a subject that you can't expect everything to be fixed with it. At the same time, like, it doesn't make it easier to watch. It doesn't make it easier to process and deal with. I think everyone is having these reactions so much because they get it. They get that you can't expect a show to do all this, but damn it, it's still angry, and it's still stupid, and it's still like, don't get me wrong, my portrayal on the show is great. I recognize that it was as honest a portrayal as I was going to get, and I feel happy about it, and I don't feel like I was mistreated, but I definitely see how, like, whoa, yeah, a lot of people were not, you know, not given a fair shake is the wrong word, because that implies like an equitable filming process, which is impossible when you're working on a TV schedule. But definitely, like, choices were made during the editing process that make them appear in a very specific way, you know?
No, definitely. So would you say that, I mean, you already kind of touched upon this, but you would say that your experience on the show was very accurately reflected, like?
I would say so. I mean, I didn't like they like I said, they didn't put up the D&D encounter, which I'll be salty about for a while, but I'll get over it. But they definitely did a pretty good job of showcasing sort of my life and what I'm about. I feel pretty accurately portrayed. I think I do have a lot more going on, but it's not so much that it doesn't tell you who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I definitely would wear sandals on the first date.
Yeah, and this is, you would say, like, this is a good intro into who Vyasar is for the
Exactly.
rest of the country and even beyond.
Yes.
Okay. My next question is, so what was the success rate of the show? I think I want to get into the success rate of arranged marriages in general, but what was the success rate of Indian matchmaking? Let's just start there.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I don't think any of the couples are still together. Not a single one. Because
Okay.
they show Akshay at the end. They show Akshay at the end of his episode getting engaged. But if you, like, he even himself has said that has been called off. You know,
Yeah.
Rashi and me, like there's this big, I love, what I love about the show is that I get all the cliffhangers, which is great because I'm a writer. I love cliffhangers. So at the very end of the 7th episode, we get that big cliffhanger with me and Rashi, but it also didn't work out with me and Rashi. No hard feelings there. Rashi and I actually were just texting last night. We're still really good friends, but things just don't work out. That's just how it goes. But it's funny too because the whole notion behind getting a matchmaker in India, there's a definite subtextual layer to it, right? These people don't, like, normal Indians don't need a matchmaker. Normal Indians can get an arranged marriage by their grandparents, by their sister, by someone else. Like, it's pretty easy to arrange a marriage, a lot of people think. So the fact that these people need it means there's something wrong with them, that these are flawed Indians, that these are broken Indians, or that these Indians have something wrong with them that requires a specialist to come in and help them, and they have to pay lots and lots of money. I think the fact is that we are not weird or bad Indians or wrong Indians in any way, but we are exceptional Indians in some ways. That we have qualities that put us beyond the pale of certain aspects that are looked for in marriage. I mean, Ankita alone, my God, Ankita is an amazing part of this show. And so many people on Twitter saying, "Oh, she's too cool for this show. She doesn't need to be on here. Like, she don't need no man." And it's true, she don't need no man. But and like she is, I mean, her denim wear brand is doing extremely well. She has got this amazing family, this cute dog, and she has a great relationship with her sister and her family. And she's dated a lot of assholes.
Yeah.
I feel like so many Indian women around the country were watching that scene and were like, damn, I relate. Like, I feel that.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to watch the shit that's said about her and to like hear all these things, because she is so amazing and so beautiful and has this just amazing energy she brings to the show. And like with people like that, you're not going to say she's a bad Indian. How could you? It's one of the most incredible things about the show is that it doesn't hide anything. Like, it really goes the extra mile to make it so real, to show that, like, this is the full spectrum of it. Like, this, as wide as it gets with this matchmaker. We are following a very specific person on a very specific mission, but we're going to show you in totality the full picture of it.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I guess I think personally for Indian Gen Zs, and I've seen this as a trend, that arranged marriages are almost going out of style in a sense. And I think the cool thing about Indian matchmaking is a lot of my generation, Gen Z kids, view love marriage as a choice, as a freedom. It's like, I'm not going to follow in like my parents' footsteps or my grandparents' footsteps and get an arranged marriage because I have the choice or the freedom to get a love marriage. But Indian matchmaking portrays arranged marriage as a choice, as a freedom as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to ask you, like, what do you think with this, like, equally, because yes, arranged marriage, maybe the success rate of love marriages isn't always, I think this is something Indian parents always like to say of like, oh, love marriages don't last as long. But I think now we can say, like, with the equally diminishing success rate of both arranged marriages and love marriages, what do you think this bodes for, like, anyone who's trying to get married in this, like, the upcoming generation, like Gen Z entering their 20s trying to get married?
I mean, look, millennials were already experiencing like a drift in this way too, with the rise in polyamorous coupling and, the ratification of gay marriage and the increased rights for LGBTQ individuals, sharing insurance policies and everything like that. Like, we're getting to a point now where partnership is replacing marriage, where we're getting this notion of what's more important than getting married is finding the right person to have that partnership with. Marriage is like a status symbol. It's like a Pokemon card that your grandparents throw at their next family gathering. It's but like partnership, I feel like, is what so many people really truly want, and that's how love marriage is definitely viewed and portrayed in so many ways. Is that it is a true partnership. It is a romantic coupling, a partnership that is so much deeper than the actual union of marriage itself. I work with Gen Z kids a lot. I mean, it's my day in and day out, and I think the biggest thing that I am struck by is how caring and in touch they are about these things, while also having like lacking the emotional maturity to also be able to like separate their own feelings from it, or like feel it's not still feel like instead it's like, you're watching these two cute children trying to ask each other out to the dance, irregardless of gender, but the same like awkward toe shuffling and like they drew this card is still happening.
Yeah.
And like it's the level of feeling is just it's so different. But at the same time, they're like barely clearly capable of talking about how like marriage is a patriarchal invention and wedding dresses all used to be black before Queen Victoria started wearing a white one. So, you know, they're very like good at quoting and using that argument. I think specifically with Gen Z Indians, it's a really interesting time right now to be a young Indian person in this country. It's just, but I think they're also seeing now that with everything that's happening with democracy right now, whether you want to talk about Black Lives Matter or the Postal Service or just anything related to anything this summer, the freedom to choose is always worth celebrating. The freedom to make choices, and that's one of the best things I love about this show is that it celebrates that freedom to choose and really dives into this notion of choice and how impactful choice can be, and for the specifically in the arranged marriage process.
No, that's very well said. I think something we've all realized this summer, and I think a lot of us knew it before too, but it's been a lot of light has been brought to it, specifically this summer, with all of us being in quarantine and the news and the stuff that's happening around us.
Yeah.
Of the freedom to choose is not only something worth celebrating, but it's something that's always worth fighting for. So,
Yeah.
very well stated. I found it really interesting that you said, or I agree with you in a sense, that love marriages are viewed as this like very like pure compatibility, and it's like true relationships, true partnerships. Because something that I've heard growing up from a lot of Indian parents, and actually my own all the time, is that they like to say that arranged marriages are true because you accept someone more wholly, you accept them with their flaws, you have very little expectations entering the marriage. So any research that you do going into it, like, you know, how, for example, with Seema Auntie, she had her little bio data for every single candidate, and she would ask you, what's your type, Vyasar? I think since like a lot of older Indian people tend to view arranged marriage as like this more pure, you know, it's like, and they say that this research that's being done, it's being done for the sake of compatibility. But do you think by any chance did the show promoted more discriminatory practices such as like casteism or colorism?
I don't know that it promotes them, but it doesn't, I mean, it definitely just portrays them, if that makes sense. I think it's the difference between a poster and a picture in that way. Because it is a docuseries, right? Like, I get that a docuseries is a subset of reality TV, but I think there is a distinction that is still important to be made there, that there's no script, you know? They're seeing things as they are, and with those expensive ass cameras, they see everything. And you're right, I think where the show definitely displays casteism or colorism is in the individuals that it's documenting, right? It's like this, the process of Indian matchmaking or arranged marriages is casteist or colorist by the people who practice it. It does not have to be inherently, but it can be when the people who practice it hold those beliefs and prejudices, is what we're seeing. I think there's plenty of criticism out there that says the show doesn't take that to task enough. I think there's some validity there, but I also think it's valid to say that that's not the show's job. Or within the scope of the show, I don't know how much of the job they could do functionally.
Okay.
You know, I think that the show is also interestingly timed with everything that's happening in Silicon Valley right now, with the case against oh God, what's the name of the company? Cisco? Is it Cisco Systems?
I'm pretty sure. I don't remember as well, but yeah.
Yeah, just like finding out that these companies in LA have so many Indians employed at so many different levels that they can practice casteist hiring practices, and all of a sudden, like this case hits the media, and the show hits the media at the same time, and it feels very strangely timed in this way to have like these conversations on different sides of the world, but very much connected in the same way, that of how prevalent caste can be, especially among like younger Indians, millennial Indians, for caste to be such a pressing issue in Silicon Valley and California and like across the world now. Because as Indians have spread across the world, you know, so too have these issues. You know, like they import Fair and Lovely to the U.S.
You would it wouldn't be as big of a problem with the Indian diaspora, because the stuff I mentioned was in the show at least more prevalent with like Indians based in India.
Sure, sure.
But somehow with that case you said, I read about it too, and it's just, it seems like it's still a prevalent issue. It's something that's like seeping through almost in the culture with Indians here as well. So
Yeah.
how do you think that we can promote this compatibility, keep that biodata thing going that we have in arranged marriages, without promoting or perpetuating the cycle of casteism and colorism and any other negative aspects that may have been portrayed in the show?
I think it needs to just wholesale be left behind. I really think that line on the biodata can just be crossed off. You know, you want to refuse a match because of someone's astrology? Be my guest. You know, but not over their caste. Come on, like it makes no effing difference, especially because it's not what the case system was originally designed to do at all. It's been corrupted through years of power mongering over the centuries and thousands of years that India has been around. So, like, let's get real. What we call a case system today is nowhere even close to what the case system was originally intended for. But I think it just needs to be a wholesale agreement between all parties involved that caste will not be brought up, that it is not a subject to discuss, that like we have to make it the way that being racist in the US became taboo, you know?
Yeah.
We have to just come to the point where, you know, outlawing it isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to become unfashionable, right? If there's one thing Indian parents fear, it's being unfashionable. You know, it needs to just become to that point where we need to completely obliterate it.
Yeah. Do you see it happening anytime in the near future? I mean, it's great for us to have this discussion being like, let's cross it out. Love that.
High in the sky, yeah.
Hopefully people see it and agree with us. But do you see that realistically happening anytime soon based off what you saw from the show?
Based on what I saw from the show and what I know about India right now, it's in a flux. It's in a massive cultural flux. India is more Western than it has ever been. And now you have a generation of people who also are more Hindu fundamentalists than it's ever been. You have a generation of people above saying that the younger generation is too Western, that's robbing them of their traditional heritage and like the true Indian lifestyle. And you have a younger generation saying, yeah, what's so great about ours? You ruined the damn country in the first place. It's a really interesting flux that India finds itself right now in. So I really do think it's possible. I mean, look, the Supreme Court recognized trans rights in India. That was a big deal. That was a really big deal.
Huge, yeah.
It was amazing, and it was unprecedented. And there was a decision that, like, they accomplished in less time in their existence as a sovereign country than it took the U.S. for.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That to me is telling. I think within our lifetime, I think we'd see it. I really do. I think that it's not going to be the work of one person, but already the changes in India that are happening are the works of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
You have a young generation that is coming up in these cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad and is realizing, like, shit, the IT life ain't for me, and like starting to like grasp and recognize the world in such a bigger way. And it's really exciting. It really, really, truly is exciting. And I'm hoping that good changes keep coming.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Indians across the world are expanding their worldview in different ways on all fronts. And I mean, that's all we can do. Keep pushing for more.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I completely agree with you on that. So did you think when you watched the show, did you find that you differed from other people in terms of maybe like South Asian stereotypes as well as just like personal beliefs and, you know?
I mean, with the US-based Indians, we definitely have a lot in common, right? Like that experience of growing up in the US. I think Nadi's experience is particularly incredible, the Guyanese background. Like I love Guyanese food and Guyanese culture. I really want to go to Guyana as well. But I think that everyone is on the show for different reasons, you know? Everyone comes to the show looking for different reasons, but also for the same reason, that we, at some level, are interested in the matchmaking process, that we are interested in finding that partner and seeking down that path. How we express that interest is also a key way of what sets us apart, right? Pradhiman's intro is so great, like, You should be attracted to the person and the person should be good. I don't see why it should be more than that. He literally says that. And it's like, it's so simple and broken down so well, but in the way he's presented in the context of its presentation, it's like, oh, it's picky, you know? It's really, really interesting how that layers out and filters through. We actually have, it's funny, all the cast members now have a Facebook group that we chat on, and like we did a video call for the first time a few weeks ago, and like everyone got to see each other's face off camera. That was really awesome. Just getting to chat and chill and hang out with everybody and like feel connected in this over this weird, unique experience that we had.
Yeah.
I really wanted, and we didn't get to do it with the Indian cast just because the time difference. But we should really do another one. I'm hoping we get to do another one soon, because that would be awesome. Just to see like that connection across the ocean. I think that everyone has the right to want what they want. Everyone has the right to like pursue how they go and what they search for. And I know it sounds like I'm going to say, but I'm not. Like, and that's just it. Like, everyone really that's the beauty of choice, is that you get to want what you want. You get to choose what you choose. You get to ask for what you ask for. Like, you should find your partner desirable. That is not a hard thing to ask.
Well, I mean, this touches upon what we just covered, but like, that's the same logic people use to perpetuate, colorism and casteism, being like, I have the right to choose what I want.
Correct.
So,
and again, but it's about making it unfashionable to choose that. It's also about making it unfashionable to yes, you can choose to be racist, but it is but it is not a good idea. You can choose to be casteist. It is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's like, yes, we should celebrate your freedom to choose, but we should also celebrate your freedom to make good choices.
Yeah.
This is the educator side coming out of me. Make good choices, everyone. Go to college, make good choices. Well, and don't get me wrong. Look, the whole model minority myth of being like, oh, Indians always make good choices. They're always like super smart. They always get the high paying jobs. They always do right. It creates a lot of pressure to be perfect. It creates a lot of pressure to not slip up. And this terror of, if I screw up, I am not just letting down myself. I'm letting down everything about being Indian. And that's a lot. And that hurts. And that's heavy to carry. And no one should have to carry that.
I think pushing for, South Asians overall, not just Indian people, I think for South Asians overall to be more involved with like humanities, such a big thing that we should be doing. I think
absolutely
pushing to just, I guess like what we said earlier, expand your worldview on all fronts. Whether it's careers, whether it's human rights, whatever it may be open and accepting to change, because that's the way our world is headed.
Absolutely.
I guess my next question would be about, how do you think Indian matchmaking has changed South Asian perspective on arranged marriage? Has it changed South Asian perspective on arranged marriage?
I think for a younger generation, it has been a really interesting thing to see for Gen Z to be like, oh, there's choice here that I didn't think existed, or there is a space for choice and a space for discourse and a space for like a family conversation about this that doesn't end with someone crying and going to the room and locking the door, right? There is space for all of that. I think for older Indians as well, it shows that like, oh, young people aren't such idiots. Like, they kind of know what's going on. They get it. Like, it creates the space for that to happen too. I also think that it is like tinder on an already blazing fire that is like a pretty heated subject of argument. That it is something that inspires a lot of heated discourse. I hope that this show kicks open the door to change. Like, I really hope that this show is followed by 6 other shows, and like we see a bigger worldview shown, and people are able to absorb that, because it is a really different kind of show. No show like this has been shot with cameras like this or edited like this, or it doesn't feel like The Bachelor. It doesn't feel like 90 Day Fiance, but it also doesn't feel like some of these previous documentaries, Suitable Girl, which also covers arranged marriage and specifically how the process of arranged marriage affects women's self-perception and their images of suitability. Look, we are kicking open the doors on so many fronts. That's the thing. Like, it's something is bound to come through there. If we keep kicking open enough doors, something is bound to happen.
Yeah. Do you think the show served as like a modernization of an old tradition, kind of almost like a parent-approved Tinder for Indian people?
I think it's definitely one way of looking at it. It's definitely one way of looking at it. Parent-approved Tinder for Indian people. Good God. That's really good. Yeah, no, the Seema Auntie Tinder comparison has definitely been made. It's so funny too because Seema is like a little old-fashioned herself in this whole process, and definitely, but like we see her on her smartphone, and we see her doing the jet-setting lifestyle and living that socialite lifestyle, and it looks very modern to us even then too. But I still think that the process is still rooted in a lot of ancient things. It's just got a lot more smartphones now, and it's got a lot more long distance phone calls over WhatsApp, and it's just it exists in a different world, but it's still the same process by and large. I mean, that's why the dowry still exists as a function. You know, that's why Preeti had such a massive dowry for Akshay's. My God, watching that scene, I was like, oh, they don't get robbed. They don't get robbed.
Yeah.
But I'm an optimist. I definitely think that there are plenty of people who watch the show who definitely are pessimistic and are happy to self-identify as pessimists and think like this is just more problems, more of the same, more things aren't going to change. It's just going to keep getting entrenched because now people will point to the show and be like, see, why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah.
But I tend to think that like every year some things get worse, but some things get better, and enough things get better that clearly the world keeps spinning, you know, and it's just about keeping and fighting for that.
Okay. Do you think? I think I guess the audience perception for the show was pretty divided compared to other Netflix originals. Do you think overall was Indian Matchmaking, in your opinion, received well by the South Asian community or the Indian community specifically? And did you notice any difference between audience perception between the Indian diaspora versus the audience based in India?
I mean, look, Netflix India has a massive audience, right? 1 billion plus people. You put something on Netflix, you're going to like see it spike pretty quickly. Indians also are notorious Netflix bingers. Like they will consume media at a rate unknown by me. I remember when I gave my mom a Netflix password, I was tracking her watching, and she would be binging shows for longer than I was, like 7, 8 hours at a time. And I'd be like, Mom, I would call her, have you gotten up? And she's like, and I think the Indian diaspora in the U.S. is in such good conversation with the Indian community back in India that they are constantly in conversation about these things. Like if you look at the trailer for the show and you look at the comments for it, there's some crazy stuff written there, but it's in a constant conversation between Desis and Indians in India. Like it's a really, really interesting back and forth. I think it was well received by both parties in terms of just numbers. Like everyone has watched the show, right? You would be hard pressed to find a South Asian who has not watched the show. And I think that it's definitely sparked a lot of debate and discourse, which is ultimately the best thing you can hope for in a show, is that people can keep talking about it, right? That's how we make things immortal. That's how we create longevity, and that's how we get season 2. And the show is definitely not that perfect. The show is nowhere near that perfect. But that's what I like about it, is that it is flawed, and that we were able to discuss a flawed work while also arguing its merits.
Okay. You touched upon earlier about how Indian matchmaking is, in your opinion, whether good or bad, an accurate representation of Indian culture. And
Right.
do you think that positive representation or negative representation is better than no representation at all?
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Because negative representation can very quickly turn into like appropriation and just like really reinforce racist stereotypes and prejudices. I mean, we should always hope for positive representation, but we should also be critical of negative representation. And sometimes, definitely for Western audiences, they have a hard time picking between the two. Like I definitely have lots of Western people who come up to me like, so is this what it's like? And all I have to say to them is that this is what it was like for me. That it's accurate insofar as all the people involved it was accurate for, right? That it like portrays things as accurately as it can. But yeah, I think representation is never, it can always be positive or negative. And I think that they're still accurate. Like all lies contain a grain of the truth in some way. It's just, you have to know that's what you're looking for when you watch it.
Okay. Interesting take. Um, do you think that this show is like the first, or one of the first at least of its kind, an all Indian cast, this like portrayal in open to the public of Indian arranged marriage culture? I think a lot of like people from here that aren't Indian don't really understand what that means when we say things like, oh, my parents want me to get an arranged marriage. Do you think that the attitudes for this show are what you expected or what the producers had in line and had in mind? Sorry.
You're good. Again, like, I don't think the producers had any idea where the show was going to go. I don't think the producers had any idea that none of the couples would stay together or that they would hear the things that they would hear. Like, this whole thing is unscripted. Many of the talks I had for the producers, they said, honestly, when something happens, we film it. That's our goal. Like, we just get everything on camera and figure it out from there and edit it the way we need to make it work. Yeah, I think that it went the way they thought it would. It became a documentary series, you know, like it became as accurate as they could get it. But I don't think in a million years they could have expected any of the things to like be revealed that were revealed. Like, SEMA has a book of 500 plus clients, and maybe out of every 10 clients they asked if they wanted to be on the show, 9 would say no, right? And then out of all the ones that said yes, not all of those are right to be on the show. Like, they had such a specific filtration process looking for the exact people they wanted. And they did. They got the exact people that they wanted. But I also think for some of them, they got more than they bargained for, you know?
Yeah. Are you allowed to touch upon what their filtration process was at all?
I mean, I can't go into like specifics, but it's not hard to guess, right? They're definitely looking for people who are desperate to get married in some form or another, or they have family members who are desperate to get them married, right? They're looking for people who are young but cover a pretty broad age range, right? In their late 20s to early 30s or late 30s. Like, it's a pretty specific span of time. Looking for people with interesting family dynamics, right? Or some kind of family dynamic, and just that watchable quality, right? The thing that sets apart Conan O'Brien from, you know, other people who try to be late night talk show hosts.
So an accurate portrayal while making good television.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest parts of working on a TV show. I used to work for the Food Network, and it was the same thing there. It was like, how can we make this look as real, but as tasty as possible?
Okay. So you said earlier that you're still single.
Yes.
I guess the people want to know, where are you headed now? What's next for you with your love life, your career, any potential reality TV coming up in your future?
Oh God, I don't know about a season 2. I don't know if I would be on season 2 or not. I don't know if they get a whole new cast. As far as my love life, I'm happy being single right now for the most part. It's like, it sucks being in a pandemic and being lonely and seeing couples like all coupled up and stuff. But it's not terrible. Like, I still have my family nearby. I still have my friends nearby, and I'm not at a point right now where I feel like I want to do that. My relationship right now is with myself. If something comes along, it comes along. Like, I definitely love talking to people. I definitely have had a great time chatting with people and like doing interviews with people like you, and getting to meet so many people through this thing. And you don't get to control who you fall in love with, and you don't get to control who you fall for. And if that happens, it happens. I'm not saying I'm not opposed to it. Yeah, I mean, right now it's just like I'm using the pandemic as also just an opportunity to like work on self-betterment and just work on like what are the things that I know I need to work on and the things that I didn't know to work on. Because let me tell you, when you watch all of Avatar: The Last Airbender over the course of a weekend, you learn a lot about yourself. I'm like, oh God.
Definitely. So there is potential that we'll see Vyasar on our screen again, maybe, hopefully.
Maybe. You can follow me on Twitter and you'll see me all the time.
Oh, well, I already do. So I will definitely link your Twitter for the people watching this to also see it. Unfortunately, you don't have an Instagram. Otherwise, I'd link that too. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much, Vyasar, for taking the time to do this. And I hope that you and your family stay safe in this pandemic, and I wish you the best for any upcoming endeavors.
Thanks, Yashi. Same to you, man. Hope everything stays okay in California.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Well, that's our interview. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to Vyasar for coming on. If you want to see more of Vyasar, head on over to Netflix where you can watch Indian Matchmaking. But before you do that, comment down below on who you think I could potentially interview next. Thanks for watching. See you next time.